shorter text, to extract accurate, detailed information. And skimming is done at speed 3 to 4 times faster than the regular reading. People often skim when they have lots of materials to read in a limited amount of time. Some students will read the first and last paragraphs using headings, summarizes, and other organizers as they move down the page of the screen. Some might also read the title, subtitles, subheadings, and illustrations. Other people consider reading the first sentence of each paragraph. Skimming works well to find dates, the names, and the places. It might be used to review graphs, tables, and charts. This technique is useful when you are seeking specific information rather than the reading for comprehensions. If you can see, sometimes other people are actually just using and looking directly on the headline. You are having, if you're fan of reading news, so headline, tapos punta agad sa link. So usually yun lang because that's the most important details also, especially in the news. Skimming specifically gives you the detailed information. Kung ano yung kailangan mo, ano yung kailan yung date, kailan sino yung pangalan, saan places, and especially it focuses kung meron tayong mga paragraphs that you are actually yung medyo mataas na paragraphs and you wanted only the exact information. So you can skim. In the same manner, you can also use skimming when you are doing a table interpretation. You go directly on the text and even on the charts interpretation. So as a student, paano nyo ba ginagamit yung skimming? Can I ask from Mr. Martizano, Kyle? When you're doing now, especially that you're also reading some text, reading in your other subjects, how do you usually use? Okay, sana all. Okay, Dapitilia. Lutang pa tayo ngayon lahat? Miss Dapitilia?
Yes, sir. Ay, basahon lang tong kuan, sir, kanang nabitaw mga important nga kuan, sir.
English, please. Can you...
Like in reading a newspaper, sir, like I'll just read the headline, sir, and then go read the summary of the news, sir, or the conclusion.
Okay, so you're not quite sure with the conclusion. Okay, can I ask Mr. Bebis, how is it important to have the skimming? Bakit mahalaga yung skimming?
Sir, to find specific facts there.
Okay, to find specific facts, especially kung pag nagmamadali ka, like now, kung nagmamadali ka, because time is running, so you can use the technique in skimming in order to get directly on the specific details na kailangan mong kunin. Okay, thank you very much. And now we have also what we call as scanning. Ano ba yung scanning? Ano bang kaibahan din ng scanning? Well, the scanning is quickly din siya. Quickly reading text to get the summary of it. It is a technique wherein students search for keywords or ideas. So therefore, ang scanning natin, ito yung enrichment of vocabulary. At the same time, kung may mahirap na mga salita within a context, within the whole duration of the paragraph, the scanning helps you to find out kung ano yung tinatawag nilang context clues. Because this focuses on the words, this focuses also on the phrases. Scanning involves moving eyes quickly down the page, seeking specific words and phrases. Scanning is also used for the reader to find the answers to the questions. Once a student scans the document, they will go back and skim it. So, ibig sabihin, especially if you're doing what we call as reading comprehension text, when you are taking an exam, palagay natin, you are taking an exam, best advice to do is actually to not read the whole text. Because there are some questions na not related, or there are some questions which are just so easy to answer. For example, what's the title of the selection? So meaning to say, you don't need to read the whole text. I hope you get my point. You don't need to read the whole text, but you just need to scan. When you are doing the scanning, then you can see there, meron pala ang words. Or you can make it a scheme para makita mo agad kung ano yung specific din na answers. Wherein, ito lang kaibahan ng dalawa. Though two things are related to each other. When you do a skimming, diba nakikita mo na, nag-skim ka na. Then the scanning also, when you do the scanning, then nakikita mo na agad yung skim. Yung ano yung tumpak na specific points mo. So, ibig sabihin dito, yung kaibahan lang, the skimming is actually giving you specific information. Wherein, ang scanning, dito nakafocus siya sa words at saka sa phrases. So therefore, we can say that scanning focuses more on the context clues for you to learn the meaning of the word, wherein scanning or skimming, it gives you the specific details or information that you need, especially when you are running out of time. Did you get the difference and relationship with the two? If you do, please type yes. If you didn't, you can raise your hands and then ask questions. Just be honest. Okay, so thank you for the response. Remember that yung kaibahan ng dalawa. But the two terms also combine and do have a relationship to each other. If you do skimming, you also have the scanning. When you do the scanning, then skimming also present. The scanning's presence also available and present. Okay, so there, alam na natin yung scanning tapos yung skimming. We have this what we call as extensive reading. In the extensive reading, it is an approach to language learning, including foreign language learning by means of a large amount of reading. If you are really fond of reading, ito yung ginagamit mo. You are reading from page to page by page. Wala kang pinalalampas because you're actually doing an extensive reading. What's a good thing in the extensive reading is that the reader's view and review of the unfamiliar words in a specific context will allow you as a reader to infer the word's meaning. Mas magigets mo, ito palang ibig sabihin. Because you go deeper. Hindi ka lang nag-scan. Kasi pag sinabi natin nag-scan, nakita mo yung word, then hinahanap mo kung ano yung ibig sabihin kaya dito. Meaning to say your context in the reading, not focusing on the reading comprehension, but you focus on the meaning of the word. Okay? Whereas when you do the extensive reading, you are into two with that. Word by word you read and you do understand directly. Ito palang ibig sabihin ng word. Ito palang ibig sabihin ng randomable. So it's a meeting place. Okay? Extensive reading is the free reading of books and other reading material. It could be also online material. It could be the ebook that you are actually using that is not too difficult for the readers. Extensive reading is sometimes called as free vocabulary or free voluntary reading. Okay, so ibig sabihin, kung mahilig ka talaga magbasa ng mga novels, mga novela or novelettes, so you can use that extensive reading. There are people who really wanted to read because the more you read, the more you share. Para hindi ka magiging outcast naman sa conversation. Mostly, mga girls mahilig talaga, though seldom, scientifically maybe, seldom boys are doing this, but skimming and scanning are just also very important for the boys because mas madali naman go directly with the concept rather than making really into detail by detail. But maganda ang detail by detail because you can infer, you can actually synthesize, you can actually give prediction of the outcome regarding that. So now that we have discussed the three reading approaches, we have this scanning, we have this skimming, and we have this extensive reading. We can now proceed to our activity. I'm sorry this, kasi for the next na yan, supposedly. Okay, so our activity, read me, is the activity that we're gonna do now. Read the selection Chenya by Anthony Mara and answer the questions that will follow. Okay, let's start reading. Hindi yung nagsagot ng A, parang si Alguno yung pinakauna. Mr. Alguno, can you read the first paragraph and the second one?
Sir?
Can you read the first paragraph and the second one?
Yes, sir. Chechnya by Antonina
Chechnya.
Mara.
Chechnya.
After her sister Czechnia by Anthony Mara. After her sister, Natasha, died, Sonia began sleeping in the hospital. She returned home to wash her clothes a few days a month, but those days became fewer and fewer. No reason to return. No need to wash her clothes. She only wears hospital scrubs anyway. She wakes on a cot in the trauma unit. She sleeps there intentionally, in anticipation of the next critical patient. Some days, roused by the shuffle of footsteps, the cries of family members, she stands and a body takes her place on the cot and she works on resuscitation, knowing she is awake because she could dream nothing like this.
Can you continue, Mr. Betis?
A man is waiting here to see you. A nurse says. Sonha,
Let's focus with Sonja.
Sonja, still in
Okay.
the cot, rubs the weariness from her eyes. About what? The nurse hesitates. He's right out here. A minute later, in the hallway, the man introduced himself. My name is Ahmed. He speaks Russian without an accent. But by now, Sonja feels more comfortable conversing in Czech, chicken,
Chick.
Chechen, Czech,
Hmm.
Czech. A short,
Laban lang, laban lang.
a short beard descends from Ahmed's face. For a moment, she thinks he's a religious man, then remembers that most men have grown their beards out. Few have shaving cream, fewer have mirrors. The war has made the country's cheeks and chins devout. He gestures to a small girl, no, no older than 8, standing beside him. My wife and I cannot care for her, Ahmed says. You must take her. This isn't an orphanage. There are no orphanages.
Thank you. Miss Arvida, can you continue? Miss Arvida, should it be? Sarvida. So naka-open lang. Miss Lobo.
The request is not uncommon. The hospital receives humanitarian aid, has food and clean water. Most important, it tends on to the injured regardless of ethnicity or military affiliation, making the hospital one of the few larger buildings left untargeted by either side in the war. Newly injured arrive each day, too many to care for. Sonja shakes her head. Too many dying. She cannot be expected to care for the living as well. Her father was taken by the rebels on Saturday. On Sunday, the army came and took her mother. Sonja looks at the wall calendar as if a date could make a sense of the times. Today is Monday, she says. She says, I was a medical student before the war, Ahmed says, switching to Czech, Chechen, Chechen. In my
Chichen.
final year, I will work here until a home is found for the girl. Ahmed glowers. Sonja often sees defiance from rebels and occasionally from soldiers, but rarely from civilians. I can't, she says, but her voice falters, her justification failing. Sonja surveys the corridor. A handful of patients, no doctors, those with money, with advanced degrees, and the foresight to flee the country have done so.
Okay, thank you. Zion, can you continue?
Parents decide which of their children they can afford to feed on which days no one will take this girl. Sonja says, then I will keep working. Does she speak? Sonja looks to the girl. What's her name? Have a Ahmed answer. 6 months earlier, Sonja's sister, Natasha's, was repatriated uh, repatri-
Repatriated.
from Italy. Repatriated from Italy. When Sandra heard the knock and opened the door, she couldn't believe how healthy her sister looked. She hugged her sister, joked about the padding on her hips, whatever horrors Natasha had experienced in the West. She put fat around her waist.
Okay, so I have a British accent student. So can you do let's read, please, Miss Dapitilia then? Okay, Miss Dapitilia. Okay. I'm pressure with the accent, dude. Next, Miss Dapitilia. What action do you have there?
Wala, sir. I am home, Natasha said, holding her hug longer than Sonja thought necessary. They ate dinner before the sun went down, potatoes boiled over the furnace. The army had cut the electric lines for 4 years earlier. They had never been repaired. Sonja showed her sister to spare room by candlelight, gestured to the bed. This is the place you sleep, Natasha. They spent a week in the state of heightened civility. No prior question. All talk was small. But Sonja noticed she did not comment on. A bottle of ribavirin, antiviral pills on the bathroom sink, cigarette prints on Natasha's shoulder. Sonja worked on surgeries, and Natasha worked on sleeping. Sonja brought food home from the hospital, and Natasha ate it. Sonja started the fire in the morning, and Natasha slept. There were mornings and there were nights. This is life, Sonja thought.
Thank you. Mr. Gonzalez, can you continue? Jade Gonzalez?
Sir,
Yes.
Ahmed is true to his words. 5 minutes after Sonia accepts the girl, he is washed and suited in scrubs. Sonja, right? Sonja
You
takes
can
him
prefer
on
Sonia, you can also name them
Sonia
Sonja.
takes him on a tour of the hospital. All but two wings are closed for lack of staff. She knows him the cardiology, internal medicine, and endocrinology wards. A layer of dust covers the floor, their footprints leaving a trail. Sonia thinks of a moon landing, how she saw the footage for the first time when she arrived in London. Where is everything? Sabi, Ahmed asked. Beds, sheets, hypodermics, disposable, gowns, surgical tape, film dressing, thermometers, IV, 4 bags, forceps, any items of practical medical use is gone. Empty cabinets, open drawers, locked rooms, closed blinds, tape over window panes, the stale air remain. The trauma and maternity wards, and we're struggling to keep them both open.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Martizano.
Ahmed runs his fingers through his beard. Trauma, that's obvious.
Beard.
You have to keep trauma. Excuse me, sir?
Beard.
Trauma, that's obvious. Okay. beard. Trauma, that's obvious. You have to keep trauma open, but maternity? Sonja laughing down the no. It's funny. Everyone is either giving birth or dying. No. Ahmed shakes his head and Sonja wonders if he's offended by her. They are coming into the world and they are leaving the world and it's happening here. Sonja nods. Wonder if Ahmed is religious after all.
Okay, can you continue? Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And now let's answer these following questions before we're gonna end our session. We still have 7 minutes to do this. Okay, so if you can see, the first question is just raise your hand if you want to answer and if you know the answer. First question, what descriptions were given about the setting of the story? But prior to that, where is the setting or what is the setting and what justifies you that that is the setting? And they give the descriptions. Okay, someone is raising the hand. Let me see. We have Mr. on the queue, Mr. Alguno.
Try lang, sir.
Okay, you can answer.
For me is the story happened in the hospital in Chechnya,
Okay.
and the story implies that this happened during the war, sir.
Okay, can you give us the descriptions to prove that it's really the hospital? Because what is asked there is what descriptions? Ano yung mga descriptions doon? Yes, Mr. Villanueva, but the answer is correct. It's in the hospital.
So, first description, sir, is 9 nurses, sir. Then, second is kaning nai Rob, sir. Kanang mga suot sa kuan. Nurses
Okay,
or kuan.
thank you. Another descriptions. Correct? We have another descriptions. How about the victims? How about the patients? How about the equipment? Okay, so it was in the hospital that is depicted on during the war that they are actually experiencing. And there are massive number of patients actually in the hospital and lack of supplies, maybe because of the number of patients that they are catering. There's also medical practitioners. There's also Sonja, which is also a doctor. And that's a good description that tells the scenario is really in the hospital. Next, number two, what seems to be the conflict surrounding the story? Raise your hand. What seems to be the conflict? Ano ba yung pala yung naging conflict on? Is it man versus man? Is it man versus society? Is it man versus himself? And then you prove. Isa lang ba estudyante ko? So yung Mr. Villanueva lang ba? How about the others? Binigay ko yung PDF na to in advance. So I presume also that you have read. Yes, Mr. Villanueva.
For me, sir, I think the conflict is nag-include siya man versus society, sir. Because from the word war, sir, kanang na daghan siya kanang kuanon, sir, na mga problems from the society, like kanang mga injury sa katong na salanta sa war, sir. Tas napoy kuan, sir, man versus man, because when katong sayang igsoon, sir, na si Natasha, sir, kay kanang murag siya nagkuan, sir, kanang nag-atiman kay wala naman siya parents or kuan. Then napoy kuan, sir, man versus herself or itself,
So,
because kanang kuan, sir, he fight back, nag kuan siya kuan, sir, problem sa iyang sarili, sir, in terms na kanang lonely kuan na lang siya, sir, siya na kanang nag kuan sa iyang pamilya, sa iyang suon, like nag kanang nag-struggle siya sa iyong sarili, sir, for to be able to survive.
Okay. Thank you. Very well said, Mr. Villanueva. So you have read and you listened carefully. Very good. And now let's have the third question. What was the deal? Yes, Mr. Mahinay.
In exchange for the safety of his best friend daughter, Ahmed made a deal with Sunja to work at the hospital.
But what was the first reaction of Sonja?
Um, wala ko ito,
Yeah,
sir.
she made a deal. Ahmed actually made a deal. But what was the reaction of Sonja? Did she accept that? Yes, Mr. Arguno?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Did she accept it at first? I mean, what was her reaction when she found the baby? I mean, si Hava, right? When they were actually making a deal with Hava, ano yung naging reaction niya? Of course, nagalit-galitan siya, di ba? Sabi niya, hindi ito orphanage. Walang mga orphanagers dito. But at the end of the story, they still made a deal. The deal still sealed. Okay? So, wala magiging safety na area si Hava. It's only in the place where actually Sonja is working. Now it's already 8:40. We'll continue the fourth and fifth question tomorrow. And for your assignment, we will not trade this one tomorrow na. And this is your assignment directly. So magiging, ano ko na dito is your Q&A. I'll be asking questions after you have read. Wala kayong ibang gagawin kundi babasahin lang to. And I'm expecting tomorrow, wag niyong ilagay lang ang inyong mga camera na naka-on when you are cold. Okay? Pag hindi, wag na lang kayong pumasok. That's the best thing to do. Then access na lang the recording. It's also not a good way. I mean, hindi magiging maganda yung magiging hindi maganda yung presence nyo. You'll just hear, but you are not also, when you're cold, you're not communicating. So what's the purpose of going into the class? Just for checking our attendance. Parang wala lang din. So, if you don't want to, and then pwede lang namin kayo mag-access sa recording session. However, kung gusto niyo pumasok, then when you're called, you do participate. I understand if the connection is really low, but you can type your answers, you can type your concerns in the chat box. Do also your part. Tomorrow, this is your this day, this is what you're gonna do to read the adaptation from the Journey to the River Sea, and tomorrow we'll have the Q&A, the question and answer. Then we'll also do your poem or critical analysis in the poem. You can have an advanced reading also on the poem. The poem is entitled Quality by this one. Quality, medyo mataas. Quality by Maya Angelo. So you can also have an advanced reading of that. Binigay ko na po ang inyong mga reading materials. It's actually in the Google Classroom. You can access on that. So that would be all for today. It's already 8:42. Thank you all for coming and have a nice day ahead. Keep safe.
Bye, sir.
Bye,
Bye,
sir.
sir.
Bye,
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 sir.
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 Thank you, sir.
Ay,